So I want to share with you guys what it's really like to live in the hood. Now we know the basics: crime, poverty, drug sales, gangsters and all that, but we want to dig a little bit deeper into what it's really like to live in the hood and what the real concerns and worries are of people living in these marginalized areas of society. Now, I've had the opportunity to live in some very nice areas like gated communities, and I've also lived in very bad areas. I was born in Cuba in the city of Camagüey. So if you've never lived through it, this top 10 list will be interesting to you, and it'll be very eye-opening into the realities of what it's like to live in the hood. You guys ready for this list?
This is the Serengeti, as most of us know it. A place of plenty. Lush grasses. Huge herds. Lots of prey. A perfect place for a predator. But on the park's eastern edge lies a rougher world. Here, prey is scarce. Water, even scarcer. Yet somehow, a lion pride has found a way to make a living in this desolate place.
And then we found this group of mangy, desperate lions that were out in just the absolute middle of nowhere.
They live completely on the edge. Once I met that pride, and it happened the first minutes I met them, I couldn't blink from them.
Nick and Nathan arrive in the dry season, when conditions are at their worst. No water, no green grass, no prey in sight.
Vumbi Pride had 5 females, and when we first arrived, 9 cubs. And they were eking out an existence in this barren, dry, dusty landscape. The cubs were pathetic. They were desperate. They were covered with mange. You could see their bones. They were fighting over any little bit of milk that they could nurse.
With little prey in this part of the Serengeti, the pride must take advantage of every opportunity.
The researchers put a radio collar on one female of every pride so that they can track their location for their science. So we were there observing them, watching what was going on, and the collared female stood up and started peering off in the distance, and we had no idea what they might be looking at.
Nick and Nathan see nothing. The landscape looks unbroken.
When we showed up there, the collared female and some of the other big females were pawing at this dusty, rocky dust. And it really seemed like the collared female was leading up the operation. She was really, really intent on whatever was in that hole.
It's a warthog.
Just the fact that they would go in that hole and pull this thing out is incredible, because you realize that they were willing to take that risk because they were desperate.
The other side of it was the collared female, who we saw had some gravitas. She seemed to be kind of a leader. But when they got the warthog, she didn't even take a bite. She stayed on the hole because she knew there was another one in there.
That just completely blew us away. You know, she knew there was another warthog in there, and she was willing to not eat the first one to take care of the pride.
In the dry season, storms can roll in quickly, but they don't last long.
Once it started raining, the lions started to lick each other, and we were just wondering, like, what's going on? Are they grooming? Is this some kind of ceremony? Eventually, we realized that they were actually licking water off each other's backs in order to drink. That the rains were so short and were so small that there wouldn't be pools of water for them to drink out of. It was crazy to watch, because you're just thinking, it's just unimaginable, I guess, that you'd have to carve out an existence in a landscape that would be so harsh that water wouldn't even last on the ground. You'd have to drink off each other's backs.
The rain is a lucky but temporary reprieve.
You can't even begin to understand what the quality of housing is like in the hood. May it be a cockroach crawling on you at night while you're sleeping, or you're sleeping and you wake up to a puddle because the roof is leaking, or you have asthma and you really don't have asthma, you have mold inside the house and you don't even know. The living conditions for poor people are unbearable, and a lot of rich people who've lived their whole lives in decent housing, they have no idea how this affects your temperament, how it affects your health, how it affects your mental condition, and your comfort. It just puts you on edge. Sometimes before you even get out the door and go to work, you're already having a bad day. Your mattress is uncomfortable, it makes your back and your neck hurt. Before you even start working, your back and your neck already hurts. Your car makes your hip hurt because the seats are uncomfortable. It's a lot of stuff that you're not even aware of as a poor person until you get into that Jaguar and you say, wow, these seats are comfortable. Until you buy a brand new mattress and you say, wow, this thing is great. Just like people from a better background don't understand how it's like to be poor, people from a poor background don't understand the comforts of living a good life. It also leaves a psychological wound in your head, especially all that information, all the murders, all the things that you listen to it, you know what happened. Can you imagine living in a place where you know somebody's killed several people and you just you can't do anything about that? Or you know so much, you know there's a drug dealing operation at a house, or you know somebody's doing something very bad, and for your own safety, even though you know what the right thing is, you can't do it. Because the legal system isn't going to protect you. The legal system isn't going to do anything for you. You're on your own out there, and I think psychological problems are a huge thing people are dealing with out there. They have no outlet, they have no escape. It's just their minds are filled with so many things that are negative and harmful, and I think a lot of people that are coming from that background, when they get some money, consider some psychological help. I know that when I came up from my situation, looking back now, I could have really used some psychological help, and getting out is actually just as hard as being there, because now everything changes. You know, the most dangerous thing is, you know, coming from that background, you feel that you have to impress people, you feel that you have to show off, and that doesn't really matter, because now that you have money, people's opinions don't matter anymore. When you're poor, everybody's opinion matters because you depend on them for 1,000 things, but when you have your own money, now you don't depend on anybody, so you don't have anybody to impress really. And that can be a very difficult thing to adjust to. My situation changed. I had a friend of mine, come up to me and I say, Jose, you're acting like a fool, man. Because even if you get some money, you can do some really stupid things with it and then stay in that situation for the rest of your life. Poor people get money a lot of times and they just don't know what to do with it. They buy rims and they buy gold chains and they'll blow through a huge amount of money that could have changed their lives on some very stupid things. Luckily, I had people around me that told me, you know, what I needed to be doing was buying real estate, paying off my debts, and making my life better. And I really appreciate that information.
The cubs have survived their first dangerous dry seasons and are just about ready to strike out on their own. They're a far cry from where they were when the expedition began.
When we first encountered Vumbi, the cubs were obviously vulnerable. Like, they were barely hanging on. They were small, they were bony, they were mangy. Their fate was hardly decided. And when we left them, they were almost 2 years old. They were nearly as big as their mothers. They were tough, they were strong, they were completely different. And there's no doubt that these cubs had only made it as far as they had because their mothers were such incredibly competent and doting mothers.
The Vumbi have succeeded in raising their cubs from infancy to near adulthood.